Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew. What I have for you today is a look at the personal survival kit, quote unquote, as part of the packing list for military survival training. So the items here were considered our personal survival kit, although on the packing list we had other items that we could take with us that were useful in survival. A couple of those really quick. We were allowed 100 feet of paracord per person, so a lot of paracord per person, and paracord is highly useful in survival, so we had that. We had a Mylar blanket, which could be considered part of this kit, but the idea behind this kit is that we take it and we put it in a small container. We actually had one instructor that had all of these items inside a soap dish like this as his personal survival kit, all tricked out. And obviously I prefer just having a tin like this, a craft tin that we can fit all these items in, or additional items if we have the space available. But we had that Mylar blanket. We had a lensatic compass for land navigation along with our map kit. We had a multi-tool as part of the kit as well. This is the Leatherman Surge, so we have that serrated blade. We have the file on there that we can remove and actually attach that small saw for notch carving. Then the main blade, and then scissors, as well as the wire cutters and pliers, reamer, all can opener, all good tools to have. When I went through, I carried the Super Tool 300 from Leatherman. Then we also had a utility blade. This is the one that I actually took into the course, which is a Benchmade Griptilian. You can tell I've used it quite a bit. This is actually my striker with my ferro rod for fire starting, and that's how I started all my fires in the fire tests anyway. But a small utility blade like this in the pocket with the pocket clip, highly useful, especially if we don't have another main blade on us and we're just working with this in our multi-tool. We had our face paint, obviously for evasion and camouflage. And then even on some of the packing lists, they recommended the Mora Companion as a survival knife, this being the fixed blade knife. We had these and we carried them and we used them for a lot of bushcraft and survival skills. But we were also issued knives. Every student got one of these. It was a Gerber FML. And this thing is not a bad knife by any means. It's heavy duty. And the idea behind using a knife like this is to use it to actually process a lot of wood as opposed to processing game. You can use this to dig. And when I got my knife, grabbed it, picked it up, took it out of the sheath, shook it, and the blade rattled. And there was actually, all the serrations were filed off, and it was just one flat grind on the blade from so much use. Students were also issued a sharpening stone. Mine obviously had the saddle in the middle from wear and tear, but people had ground down the blade so much the serrations were gone, and then it was just one flat grind, and we had used these to dig the earth. Not recommended, but you work with what you got. And we use these knives a lot of the time for processing wood and making tinder, but we also use these to dig in the earth, to forage for tubers, or to create Dakota fire pits, all that kind of stuff. And so wear and tear over time, this thing is going to shake, and it's probably part of the course as well, to give you kind of lame, lousy gear that's been used a lot to make it extra stressful on you. So we had this knife, and we also had just a clear trash bag, a 33-gallon trash bag. And the idea behind this was to waterproof gear, but then we could also use it as a transpiration bag, and that was a technique that we were taught and then used and implemented because we went when it was hot enough to actually employ these. But these items right here, in their specific quantity, size, and shape, the items that were prescribed as our personal survival kit. These items being those small ones, again, that could fit in a tin or fit in a small bag that would go in our pocket, or we could cross-load these. These were considered the survival items. So the first items here, we had tinder, cotton balls. We were allowed 1 quart-size bag of man-made tinder. Now obviously, and instead of just making it cotton balls only, took that Vaseline, covered the cotton balls with Vaseline, and then that was my tinder. So we got to use this for fire starting. We had to start a lot of fires, but we also had fire tests where we had to start fire, dig a Dakota fire hole or some sort of pit, and then bring water to a boil inside a canteen cup within a certain amount of time. And so we had to have a lot of fire starting material. And then by the end of the course, we were using natural materials as part of our fire test to get fires going and to start fires, to cook and boil water and to signal. So we've got that tinder. Then we've got our ferro rod, our fire starter. We were actually allowed just a small ferro rod as part of our kit, or a magnesium bar, or both. And so I took both, but I had a ferro rod, and this is what I used to start my fires with. Obviously the #1 fire starting tool after a lighter. We were not allowed lighters as part of the kit, obviously, so we just had this ferro rod. So for small cutting tools, again, we have that multi-tool, we have that fixed blade, we have our utility knife, but we were also allowed razor blades. This may be somewhat different nowadays, but when I went through, we were allowed razor blades. as cutting tools, and we used these to process game or to make improvised knives, things like that. So we had small cutting tools that went inside our small little kit. We also had a signal mirror. So a signal mirror was part of the packing list, but we were also issued one, so we had a couple of signal mirrors that we could carry with us, and then we would use this to signal search and rescue. And during some of the survival training, we actually used a lot of the different signals that are available out there. So smoke, we could use flares, we could use different dye packets and water, and we used signal mirrors and whistles, and then auditory and visual signals, day and nighttime signals as well. But this was the primary signal that every single person had because we can use it over distance, and it's easy to employ generally, and it's lightweight and can go anywhere with us. And then we had aluminum foil. We were supposed to have approximately 1 foot by 2 foot of aluminum foil that we were going to use for cooking primarily. It can also be used as a signal. It can be used as a tracker marker. We can make our boot imprint on this and then leave it behind for search and rescue to find. Or we can use this, again, fold it origami style and make a cup to put this over a fire and boil water to make it safe to drink, which was a good use. But tinfoil has a lot of good uses, even improvisational techniques. We can use this to create fishing lures as well and use it for making char and other things. But a 1 foot by 2 foot rectangle piece of aluminum foil was all we were allowed. Then we had Band-Aids. Obviously, you can tell I'm wearing Band-Aids right now because I always cut myself, and you can tell which hand I'm dominant. This hand, the right hand anyway, because I'm constantly cutting the left hand. But we had Band-Aids, or small plasters, I guess you would call them, as part of our kit as well. And my favorite are going to be those Next Care with the cushioned, waterproof exterior. These things are awesome because they are waterproof. You can wrap them around your digits, and you have small ones or medium ones that can go over knuckles, things like that. But I've been wearing these for about 12 hours now, and they're still on there. I've washed my hands a number of times and been playing with a bunch of different things. And you can see the adhesive has just moved just a little bit on this Band-Aid, but they're still holding, and that's why I like these, especially for survival, because they're going to stay on as opposed to some of those cheap Band-Aids that you're going to get that may fall off as soon as they get wet. But these are the best ones for survival, and these are the ones I took to the course and placed inside my survival kit. Next, we had a Crevat. I know we had a Crevat on the list. Some of the most recent lists I've looked at don't have a Crevat as part of that survival item. And I know I had a Crevat in the course as part of my prescribed personal survival kit because I used this toward the end of the course for toilet paper in a emergency, let's say, and right before something awful happened. But I was glad I had this because I could go to the bathroom really quick before I went into a situation where I would have been probably embarrassed. So I had a Crevat as part of that kit. The Crevat, again, we can use this for camouflage. We can use it for gathering different things. We can use it to soak up water, get a drink. We can use this for a tourniquet, a pressure dressing, a medical aid device. We can use it for a sling, a swath. We can use it to make char cloth. We can do a lot with a simple piece of cotton fiber like this. This is a triangle-shaped Crevat, and it typically comes with safety pins so you can secure it. But that Crevat is a highly useful item as part of a survival kit, and I know I had it as part of my pack out. And speaking of safety pins, we had safety pins as part of our kit. We can use these to turn them into fish hooks. These were great for repairing clothing, or at least holding clothing together while you did repair it with your sew kit. 4 large safety pins, part of the packing list. A lot of good uses with these. And then speaking of a sewing kit, we had a sewing kit. I've got my military pouch here where I kept my sewing kit, but I kept it in a certain way and actually got a little bit of kudos from the instructors because they thought I was smart. Joke's on them. As I struggle with the bag, of course. And so one thing I did that they thought was cool was taking a sewing bobbin, and I put all my thread on that sewing bobbin. It just seems to explain itself, I guess. But we were allowed thread to help repair clothing. There was no prescribed length or anything like that. We had buttons, and then the scissors. They actually made us get rid of the scissors, so we had to throw them in a box. But we were allowed buttons to help repair. And then one other thing I did with my sew kit, and this is similar to the sew kit I actually had in the course, was the sachet here, or just taking tape and taping everything up flat. And so not only did I have my safety pins and needles, but I also had my fish hooks in there as well. A little too many right there, but this is how everything looked when I packed it up, so I wasn't losing anything, and all I had to do was grab my sewing kit, throw it in my pocket or in my kit, and I had everything I needed right there, besides wire and fish hooks to survive. And then speaking of fish hooks, we were allowed 5 small to medium fish hooks. And when I went through, there was a drought, so we had to walk a long ways to get to a water source to attempt to fish. And so we relied on other means to secure our food, traps, snares, as well as thievery. But we had 5 hooks as part of our packing list. Then we had fish line. We had 50 feet of 10-pound test or lower monofilament fishing line. So this is 50 feet of 10-pound right here. This is kind of what it looks like. Similar to that sewing thread, we could take that fish line and put it on a sewing bobbin as a nice keeper. But the fish line, 50 feet or so, this is probably a little over 50 feet, I would guess. But 50 feet of fish line to make cane poles, hobo reels, improvised traps, even snares, or we could use this for clothing repair with our needles. A lot of good uses, obviously. And lastly, we were allowed 10 feet of 22 gauge snare wire. This is 10 feet or so, probably a little bit more, of 22 gauge brass snare wire. This is that half hard snare wire, so it's going to hold that shape or that new shape very well, but still collapse with enough flexibility to wrap around that animal as we set out snares. And so we have this for snares. We could even use this for one of those drag poles or snare poles to go after game. We actually use that to secure food out there and caught a rabbit that way. But snare wire is a great thing to have as a kit for passive snares. We can combine this with other trap items to make even more deadly traps or snares to guarantee us food off the landscape. So snare wire is a good thing to hold. All right, guys, so that's everything from the quote-unquote personal survival kit portion of the packing list for survival training. Now, there's probably a psychological effect with this as well as we look at these minimal items and having to make do in a high-stress environment where we're not eating, we're not sleeping, we're walking constantly, we're evading, we're going through a lot of high-stress scenarios. These items probably teach us a lot, but then on the flip side, if you're actually in an isolating environment, having that really good, robust military survival kit, when you open that up, is probably a huge morale boost. And then you have a lot of good items in there that you can use for survival. But this is everything in the survival kit on that packing list, just to give you an idea of what we had to work with. So I really hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate your feedback. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I will be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.